3 years into the marriage, Mason had clung to one comforting certainty. The scholarship student he sponsored, Tiffany, was pure, kind, and untainted by the world. That certainty shattered the afternoon I accidentally dropped a few grains of rice. Tiffany smashed her bowl in front of everyone. Shards slashed my cheek. Yet she delivered her lecture with righteous zeal. Serena, how could you waste food like that? I answered with a backhand across her face. Mason lunged forward, shielding her in his arms, roaring at me. She only cares about the harvest. What gives you the right to hit her? I pressed my palm to the bleeding cut and gave a cold laugh. So that entitles her to bash me with a bowl? That night he carried a steaming bowl of spiked herbal tea to me himself. I believed the gesture. When I opened my eyes again, I was bound on a patch of scrubland outside Reno, Nevada. A freezing iron yoke locked around my torso. They stood on higher ground ordering me to plow. I smiled, because the real owner of this dirt, from fence line to fence line, was me. Before we go on, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. Tiffany saw my grin and shrieked. What are you smiling at? Start tilling. You think this is a game? Mason stood beside her, eyes arctic. Serena, consider this your education. Tiffany's right. You've been pampered since birth. You have no clue what real hardship is. Today you'll learn every grain costs pain. The corners of my mouth lifted higher. Mason, this tract has an owner. Are you sure you should be planting flags here? I reminded him quietly. He snorted. An owner. Look around. This is a godforsaken wasteland. Only a lunatic would buy it. Quit stalling. You'll work this field whether you like it or not. Tiffany chimed in, clinging to his arm with disdain. Exactly. Mason, the soil's dry and barren. Nobody in their right mind would want it. Serena's just making excuses so she won't suffer. I sneered inwardly. They had no idea that beneath this barren scrub lay America's largest, newly verified rare earth vein. In 3 months this spot would be the strategic prize every tech titan on the planet would kill to control. I turned my gaze to Tiffany, tone dripping sarcasm. Having a civil war between your left and right brain. You swear the land is worthless, yet you want me to break my back on it. Sounds like pure torture to me. You, she sputtered, hackles up. She stamped her foot, voice climbing. Precisely because it's infertile. Only after you've toiled on the worst soil will you feel what farmers endure. They don't get a choice, you do. Farmers break their backs while you throw rice away. You're worse than ungrateful, so your lesson gets doubled. That upside-down sermon moved Mason deeply. He stroked her hair, eyes soft. Tiffany, you're so kind, so full of empathy. Then he whipped toward me, voice brutal. Did you hear that, Serena? Try taking a page from Tiffany's heart. I found the whole scene too ludicrous to waste breath on. I simply closed my eyes, refusing to cooperate. Tiffany's eyes reddened. She wailed. Mason, look. She still won't plow. She's not sorry at all. Mason's rage flared white hot. Fine. Hard way it is, he bellowed. He barked at the 2 black-clad bodyguards. Hold her down. Make her claw the earth with her bare hands. Let's see how stubborn she really is. The bodyguards strode forward and slammed me onto the ground. I lay prone, shoulders and legs pinned, unable to move. Dig, Mason commanded. I thrashed, but against 2 brutes my strength was useless. Sharp gravel and coarse sand shredded my fingertips. The pain shot straight to my bones. Nails split, skin rasped away, blood mixed with dirt, dyeing my hands crimson. I screamed. Mason showed no pity. This hurt is nothing next to the daily grind of farmers. Can't take it. I've clearly spoiled you too long. I shook from agony, cold sweat soaking my back. I had no strength left to argue. The sun overhead was turning vicious. Beyond the fire in my fingers, waves of dizziness hit, heatstroke creeping close. Meanwhile Mason and Tiffany lounged beneath a giant parasol. A small fan whirred, and a platter of iced watermelon sat on the table. Water. My throat felt like parchment, lips cracked and bleeding. In a cracked whisper I begged Mason. Just some water. He heard me and only frowned deeper. Already whining. Such a princess, he sneered. Unmoved, Tiffany rose, playing reluctant Samaritan. Mason, she really looks miserable. Maybe give her a sip? Mason caught her hand. Touched. Tiffany, your heart's too big. After what she did, you still repay evil with kindness. He twisted to me, shouting, see the difference. You've disgraced me completely. His gaze swept over my filthy, trembling form and he curled his lip. Look at you, like some stray dog. Filthy and pathetic. He turned back to Tiffany, voice honeyed. Our Tiffany, on the other hand, always immaculate. Tiffany tilted her head in fake modesty, pride leaking through. Oh, don't tease me. Maybe Serena's just, well, getting older and doesn't care about appearances. Ice settled in my chest. Older? I'm 25, the same age she is. I'm the one who doesn't care. They tied me up, threw me in the dirt, reduced me to this wreck, and they dare claim it's my doing. Tiffany signaled a bodyguard. He dragged a metal pail over and dropped it with a clang. Serena, drink up, she cooed. I lifted my head, took one look, and my pupils contracted. The bucket held foul, murky runoff, liquid mud swirling with dead leaves and insects. You expect me to drink this? I rasped. Tiffany's face crumpled into hurt innocence. How can you say that? Farmers sometimes have nothing cleaner. You're lucky there's anything at all, yet you complain? When Mason saw I wouldn't accept the favor, rage flared in his eyes. Tiffany was kind enough to offer you water, and you dare turn up your nose. Looks like you're begging for a lesson. Before the words had even settled, he snatched the pail from the bodyguard's hands and strode over to me. He upended the entire bucket of sludge, pouring it straight down over my head. The freezing mug soaked me instantly. Grit flooded my eyes, nose, and mouth. I sputtered, hacking and spitting out mouthfuls of dirt. But dumping the water wasn't enough for Mason. He tossed the pail aside and said coldly, "Seems the lesson hasn't sunken yet." He turned to the bodyguard and ordered, "Go fetch what we prepared in the car and dump it out here. Let her get a real taste of farm life." A terrible premonition clawed at me. Soon the bodyguard returned with several burlap sacks that squeaked and rustled. When the mouths of the sacks were opened, brightly patterned snakes and a nest of jet black rats spilled out around me. Terror shot through my bones. Ah! I screamed and tried to scramble away, thrashing backward, but Tiffany's heel slammed between my shoulder blades, pinning me to the ground like a nail. Malice glittered on her face as she ground her shoe into my spine. "Sis Serena, what are you dodging for? Critters like these are normal in a field. You can't be such a delicate flower." Pain and fear buckled my mind. I stared at Mason in desperation and begged, "Mason, help me. Make her move her foot." A flicker of hesitation, even pity, crossed his eyes. Then Tiffany spoke, "Mason, don't go soft. Isn't Sterling bidding on the Polaris project right now? If word gets out that the wife of Sterling's CEO insults farmers and doesn't know hardship, think how bad that'll look. If it costs us the contract." The moment the words Polaris project hit his ears, every trace of doubt vanished from Mason's gaze. "Tiffany's right," he said grimly. "He told me, fields have snakes and rats. You need the toughening." Staring at his expressionless face, I felt my last sliver of hope die. Mason didn't know the Polaris project was already out of his reach. Maybe my struggling was too pitiful, because Mason's eyes flickered. At last he waved a hand, irritation in his voice. "Enough. Stop it," he ordered the bodyguards. "Clear that stuff away." The bodyguards moved in quickly, scooping snakes and rats back into the sacks. Tiffany's gaze flashed with resentment, but she hid it an instant later. The foot crushing my back lifted. I collapsed, gasping, every limb trembling. Tiffany walked to Mason's side and cooed, "You just said the Polaris project is about developing a plot of land. We're standing on one right now. Why not practice here and plant the layout?" Mason's eyes lit up. He flicked her nose fondly. "Always smart and thoughtful. Exactly what I need." Energized, he turned to the bodyguard. "Bring the excavator over." Alarm bells screamed in my head. I struggled to push myself up and croaked, "Can I go rest now?" Tiffany blocked me at once, looking down from her height. "Sis Serena, no moving yet. You're going to serve as our warning line." Warning line? I was dumbstruck, not understanding a word. Tiffany's grin widened as she pointed at the approaching excavator. "Yep, I'm driving that digger. And with you lying on the ground, I'll know exactly where the boundary is, so I won't scoop anything I shouldn't. You're my human measuring stick." My eyes almost burst from their sockets. "Mason, you can't let her do this," I shrieked. Mason frowned. Even he thought the stunt excessive, and hesitation crossed his face. Seeing that, Tiffany wrapped both arms around his elbow and wheedled, voice syrupy, "Mason, please let me try. I minored in civil engineering and never get real practice. Don't worry, I'll be super careful. I swear I won't hurt Sis Serena." Mason beamed and swept a generous hand. "All right, give it a shot, but steer gently." Tiffany shot me a smug glance, then climbed into the cab. I watched helplessly as she fired up the machine. The huge boom swung overhead with a thunderous growl. I dug my elbows in and inched backward, desperate to widen the gap between me and that steel bucket. But Tiffany drove straight at me, manipulating the arm so every sweep came within inches of my body. Screech. The metal edge sliced along my thigh, missing the bone but ripping skin wide open. "Ah!" I yelped. Fiery pain blazed up my leg. Tiffany popped her head out. "All innocence. Oops. Sorry, Sis Serena. I'm still learning." Slipped a little. Mason barked at me. "Quit the drama. Tiffany already said it wasn't on purpose." He scowled. "She's just testing the controls. You think she'd hurt you on purpose? Stop acting for sympathy." I shook with fury, pointing at my bleeding leg. "Mason, are you blind? I'm wounded." Tiffany hopped down, wide-eyed. "Mason, don't be mad. Sis Serena isn't hurt. The red stuff is just watermelon juice I spilled on her when I was snacking. At that, Mason's disgust deepened. Serena, have you no shame? Faking an injury with watermelon juice just to milk pity. He pulled Tiffany up and soothed her. Ignore her. Keep practicing. I trembled with rage. Tiffany remounted, lips curling in challenge. She restarted the engine, and this time the massive bucket plunged straight toward my skull. Then a deafening rumble rolled across the field. Dozens of matte green heavy-duty armored vehicles ringed the scrubland. Mason and Tiffany froze, mouths agape. The excavator's bucket halted less than 4 inches from my forehead. Tiffany's face drained to paper white, hands shaking like leaves in a storm. The lead armored convoy's door swung open and a middle-aged man stepped out. 2 bodyguards fell in behind him and walked straight toward me. The man halted in front of me, bowed with perfect respect, and spoke in a voice that rang with self-reproach. Serena, Lincoln is late. I've let you suffer. Serena. The 2 words detonated like a thunderclap in Mason and Tiffany's ears. Mason's jaw dropped, his face a kaleidoscope of disbelief. Serena, he muttered, voice quivering. Lincoln straightened, his razor-sharp gaze sweeping over the blood on my clothes and the gash on my leg. Fury roiled in his eyes. The sheer force of his aura seemed to crush the air itself. His stare finally settled on Mason and Tiffany. Sterling, Lincoln said, ice cold. I need an explanation. Mason's knees went weak. Cold sweat soaked through his shirt in an instant. He might command boardrooms, but in front of this man who reeked of authority, he felt and small. This is a misunderstanding. I was just fooling around with my wife, he stammered. Mind blank. Fooling around? Lincoln gave a freezing laugh. Sterling, you have one hell of a sense of humor. I watched Mason, taking in every flicker of panic in his eyes. Softly I said, Mason, haven't you always wondered where the coveted Aurora development site is? He nodded instinctively. I ground the heel of my shoe into the dirt beneath us. Right here, I answered calmly. This very patch of worthless scrubland you said only an idiot would buy. Mason's pupils shrank to pinpoints. Disbelief carved across his face. No, impossible, he blurted. The prospectus clearly states the land is in Arizona. Decoys, I replied. Indifferent. With stakes this high and every hawk in the country watching, the real treasure hides where no one looks. Mason swayed, then steadied himself, forcing a grin. So it's here. So what? He bluffed. With Sterling's clout we can still win the open bid. He still thought this was merely a slipped detail, that the game could turn. Looking at him, I found it hilarious. Really? I countered. An open bid. I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. I paused, enunciating every word, because I am the owner of this land. Every last trace of color drained from Mason's face. He staggered back 2 steps, staring as though I'd materialized from thin air. How? Where did you get that kind of money? Why couldn't I have money? My eyes held only pity. Mason, after 3 years of marriage, do you actually know me at all? Who are you? His voice cracked. He finally grasped that the situation had spiraled far beyond his neat little world. I didn't answer. I simply looked at him. Lincoln stepped forward and delivered the verdict. The woman standing before you is not only your wife of 3 years, Serena. She is also the sole granddaughter of U.S. defense titan Victor Vance, the lone heir to Vance Industries, a behemoth straddling military, political, and corporate worlds. As for the ground beneath your shoes, it's nothing more than a private investment the young lady made on a whim 3 years ago. Mason's eyes bulged. He had always believed I was an orphan nonentity, docile and dependent, raised by distant relatives, someone he could cherish when convenient and discard when not. No. You're lying, he raged, head shaking like a man possessed. Serena, tell me it isn't true. You're just an ordinary woman, right? He pleaded with his gaze, begging me to deny everything. I regarded him coldly. Do you wish it were fake, Mason? Because then you could keep grinding me under your heel and keep playing your touching redemption drama with sweet, innocent Tiffany. Isn't that right? That tore the last thread. Mason's legs buckled. He dropped to his knees. Serena, I was wrong. I swear I was wrong. He sobbed, clutching my legs like a supplicant. I'm trash. I let that witch fool me. Spinning around, he jabbed a shaking finger at the petrified Tiffany, snarling, it's her. She poisoned me against you. She fed me lies until I hurt you. Serena, you're the only one I've ever loved. To prove his remorse, he scrambled to Tiffany and smashed a brutal slap across her face. Smack. You bitch. You ruined me. Smack. Jinx. I'll beat you to death. Blow after blow landed, each harder than the last. Every ounce of cruelty he'd shown me doubled and turned on the woman he'd adored minutes earlier. Tiffany screamed, blood trickling from her split lips. Mason, why are you hitting me? What did I do? She wailed. How dare you ask? He kicked her to the ground, grabbed her hair, and scraped her face through the dirt. You lying slut. You destroyed my life. I watched the dog-eat-dog spectacle unfold, feeling nothing but revulsion. This was the man I had loved for 3 years. Cowardly, self-serving to the core. Before absolute power, his so-called love was thinner than tissue. He would trample his beloved in a heartbeat if it bought him mercy. Enough, I cut in. Voice glacial. Mason froze, crawled back, and gazed up like an obedient lapdog. Serena, look, I punished her for you. Forgive me. Okay, let's start over. I swear I'll worship only you and never look at another woman again. I studied his groveling face, then slowly crouched until our eyes met. I gave his terror-stricken face a light pat. Mason, I said softly, did you honestly think I'd parade my real identity today, just so you could drop to your knees, beg, and then I'd magnanimously forgive you, let you ride my coattails straight to the top? He froze. A flicker of panic in his eyes told me I'd hit the mark. I smiled. You're wrong. I rose to my feet and looked down at him. I revealed myself only so you'll die knowing exactly why. The instant the words left my lips, every trace of color drained from Mason's face. He collapsed on the floor, lips trembling, unable to force out a single syllable. I turned away and fixed my gaze on Tiffany, bruised, bloodied, and limp where he'd left her. Bring her here, I ordered coolly. 2 bodyguards strode forward and hauled the quivering Tiffany to me. She was petrified, eyes wide with dread, mumbling non-stop. It wasn't me, not my fault. Please, spare me. Tiffany, I began evenly. You've always claimed you're a scholarship student, haven't you? She nodded instinctively. Behind me Lincoln held out a tablet. I took it, tapped a video, and flipped the screen toward her. Then explain this. The footage showed a lavish private club in Los Angeles. Tiffany, in a skimpy dress and heavy makeup, clung to the arm of a portly middle-aged man, cooing, President Wang. As long as you help me land Mason this time. Once I'm Mrs. Sterling, you'll be generously rewarded. The background was noisy, but that sentence rang crystal clear. The moment Tiffany saw it, her pupils contracted, and the last fleck of color left her cheeks. No, that's not me, she shrieked, shaking her head wildly. Not you? I sneered. I swiped the screen. Photo after photo appeared, her stepping out of high-end boutiques on Rodeo Drive, racing a Porsche up to a nightclub, intimate shots with different men. So your version of a port is slinging a Birkin every day, racing a Porsche, and circulating among tycoons? I mocked. And your innocence is deliberately sidling up to Mason, using him as your personal escalator? She opened her mouth, but only a ragged whimper came out. Her trembling intensified. Lincoln added, Miss, our investigation confirms she was never any scholarship student. She's a professional romance scam operator. She targets self-made executives like Sterling who can't resist the poor innocent bait. She plays the pitiful ingenue, wins trust, then siphons money. All the poverty proofs and college transcripts she gave Sterling were forged. Layer after layer the truth peeled away, exposing the filth beneath. Mason listened in a daze. The salvation he'd believed in so devoutly was nothing but a meticulous con. No, impossible, he muttered over and over, mind reeling. Seeing her game was up, Tiffany abandoned begging and hurled abuse instead. Yes, I conned him, so what? He was stupid enough. A pampered princess like you can't imagine how tough life is down here. I just wanted a better life. What's wrong with that? What's wrong? I cut in icily. Is your method. Wanting a good life isn't a crime. Your route was. Take her away, I said with a dismissive wave. Fraud. Document forgery. Premeditated assault. Those charges should keep her occupied for a long while. With Tiffany handled, only Mason remained, slumped like mud, along with his bodyguards who were too terrified to move. Mason stared at me, despair swimming in his eyes. He knew he was next. He dropped to his knees and knee-walked toward me. Abject. Serena, for the sake of our 3 years of marriage, let me off just this once. I admit I was blind, an idiot, fooled by that witch, but my feelings for you were real. I love you, Serena. From the moment I first saw you, I loved you. Remember, we met at a charity gala in New York. You sat quietly in a corner while other women chased celebrities. I knew then you were different. When we married, you said you had no family, and I swore I'd become your only kin, protect you for life. These 3 years, haven't I given you the best of everything? Spoiled you. Whatever you wanted, I bought. I let his clumsy monologue run on, finding it almost funny. Once I'd been touched, convinced I'd found someone someone I could trust. I'd happily cooked for him, kept our home in perfect order, hidden every sharp edge of my background so his fragile pride could breathe. What did my patience earn? Not gratitude, but contempt. He decided I couldn't live without him. That arrogance let him parade Tiffany under our roof. Let him wound me again and again for an outsider's sake. Mason, I finally cut in. I remember every item on your list. Hope sparked in his gaze. I laughed softly, which is exactly why I can't forgive you. Your love hinged on my fragility and my need for your protection. Once Tiffany appeared, poorer, weaker, your affection shifted without hesitation. Your love can't even outrank your hunger for fame and gain. I pointed at him, enunciating every word. Minutes ago Tiffany dangled the Polaris project and you stood by while rats and snakes tore at me, while an excavator nearly flattened me. Mason, you're a thorough hypocrite. His pleading eyes darkened into resentment. So you lied from day one, he hissed, while I pranced like a clown bragging about my company. Were you laughing inside? If you'd told me who you were, how could I have messed up? This whole nightmare is your trap. Your fault. Even at the brink he refused responsibility, shoving every ounce of blame onto someone else. I was beyond disappointed, beyond exhausted. Lincoln, I said, turning to him, send the word. Lincoln gave a single nod, pulled out a phone, and dialed. Go. Within 30 minutes. I don't want to hear the name Sterling anywhere in the US. No, don't. Mason's eyes widened in terror. He scrambled toward me on hands and knees, trying to clutch my legs, but the bodyguard shoved him back without a flicker of pity. His cell erupted in a frantic ring, his assistant. With trembling fingers he hit accept. On the other end, the man was sobbing, Sterling, it's a disaster. All our corporate accounts have been frozen. Our biggest partners just mailed termination letters, each demanding immediate, crippling penalties. The markets crashed. Our stock hit the circuit breaker in 5 minutes. It's worthless. Joint task forces from federal agencies just padlocked headquarters. Sterling, we're finished, utterly finished. Mason listened, slack-jawed. The phone slipped from his nerveless grip, shattering on the ground. The empire he'd spent 10 years forging, Sterling, had turned to smoke in minutes. He shrieked, slamming his forehead against the dirt again and again. Remove him, I said quietly. Let the courts decide his sentence. Yes, Mississippi. Lincoln signaled. 2 bodyguards hoisted the limp Mason upright and dragged him away. Just before he vanished, he twisted back, rasping, Serena, you raised everything. I'll haunt you even as a ghost. I met his glare, calm as still water. You never learned how to be a decent human. What makes you think you can manage being a ghost? When the dust settled, Lincoln had clean blankets and a medical kit brought over. The doctor gently loosened the iron yoke, washed away the grime with warm water, disinfected and wrapped my wrists and ankles. Miss, Lincoln said, offering a bottle of spring water, voice low with concern. What now? I drank, soothed my parched throat, then answered, home, yes, home, to the place that had always been mine. These 3 years of marriage had been a fever dream. Now I was wide awake. Lincoln inclined his head. Victor is waiting. When he heard you'd been hurt, he smashed his favorite vintage clay teapot and vowed to grind that Sterling boy to ash. I could picture grandfather's fury. Warmth spread through my chest. Tell him to spare his anger. Such people aren't worth it. I've already handled it. Understood. Lincoln's tone was deferent. Your methods are as clean as ever. Leaned on the doctor's arm. I walked toward the lead-armored convoy. Before climbing in, I glanced back at the scrubland. Lincoln, Project Northstar proceeds per schedule, I said, but bump Sterling's rival to prime contractor. Roger. Also, announce a $1 billion Vance endowment for students who are genuinely poor and gifted, and for upgrading farm tech in rural counties across the Midwest. Lincoln blinked, then approval lit his eyes. Magnanimous. Mississippi. I shook my head. I simply refused to let words like kindness and charity be soiled by parasites like Tiffany and Mason. Real poverty needs real help, not condescending selfies and vanity donations. With that, I boarded the vehicle without a backward glance. 1 month later, the sentences came down. Tiffany was convicted of fraud, defamation, and intentional assault. The combined term will keep her behind bars for decades. Her entire ring of professional swindlers was scooped up with her. Mason's rap sheet was longer. Kidnapping, assault, and uncovered after the raids, massive tax evasion, and commercial bribery. The judge handed him life without parole. The once untouchable CEO of Sterling will spend every remaining dawn staring at prison bars. As for me, I reclaimed the reins of Vance Industries and the Northstar Rare Earth Project with lightning precision. After I neutralized 2 concurrent hostile takeovers, the old guard board members bowed in genuine respect. I proved I belong in the chair, not as Victor Vance's granddaughter, but as Vance's commander. That afternoon, while I signed off on contracts, my assistant assistant knocked. Ms. Vance, Mason's mother is here. She begs to see you. Says she'll kowtow if it will win her son a sentence reduction. I looked up, surprised. What does she want? To apologize on her knees. To ask you to lift a finger for leniency. I was silent a moment, then shook my head. No audience. Tell her, he chose the road. He owns the consequences. No one can atone for another. Certainly, Ms. Vance. The assistant withdrew. I dropped my gaze to a fresh proposal, an incubator fund for female entrepreneurs. I uncapped my pen and wrote across the title page, "May ever you become your own light." Outside the windows, the sky was clear for miles. My new life starts here. As for Mason and Tiffany, they are a page forever torn from my book, unworthy even as cautionary footnotes. There are wider horizons waiting, and far finer scenery ahead. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the story, like and share it with friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more tales. See you next time.